The vast expanse of the cosmos was engulfed in a brutal interstellar war as alien civilizations clashed in a relentless struggle for dominance. Amidst the chaos, a lone human exploration vessel, captained by a seasoned veteran, stumbled upon the battlefield, unaware of the galactic conflict unfolding around them. As the human ship glided silently through the debris-strewn void, the crew gazed in awe at the sheer scale of the battle raging before them. Hulking alien warships exchanged thunderous barrages of energy weapons, their shields flaring brightly as they maneuvered through the chaos. Smaller fighter craft darted between the larger vessels, weaving intricate dance-like maneuvers as they sought weaknesses to exploit. The human captain, a grizzled veteran named Alara, narrowed her eyes as she studied the unfolding conflict. Her crew, a mix of seasoned explorers and fresh-faced recruits, tensed nervously, unsure of how to proceed. "Hold position," Alara commanded, her voice calm and steady. "We need to assess the situation before making any rash decisions." As the human ship hung motionless, a sudden proximity alert blared, causing the crew to jump in their seats. Alara whirled around, barking orders to her navigator. Two enemy vessels on an intercept course. Evasive maneuvers now. The human ship lurched into motion, its advanced engines propelling it away from the approaching alien ships. Alara gripped the arms of her chair, her knuckles whitening as she watched the enemy ships close in. "Shields at maximum. Arm all weapons," she shouted, her eyes narrowing with determination. "We're not going down without a fight." The two alien vessels, sleek and angular in design, opened fire, their energy beams lancing out and slamming into the human ship's shields. The crew braced themselves as the impacts rocked the vessel, but Alara remained steadfast, her gaze fixed on the enemy. "Return fire," she barked. "Target their engines, knock them out of the fight." The human ship's weapon systems came alive, unleashing a devastating salvo of missiles and particle beams. The alien ship's shields flickered and failed under the onslaught, and one of the vessels lurched sideways, its engines guttered and damaged. Alara's lips curled into a grim smile. "Good. One down, one to go." But as the battered alien ship drifted away, the remaining vessel suddenly accelerated, its engines flaring with a blinding intensity. Alara's eyes widened as she realized the true nature of the enemy's intent. "They're on a collision course," she yelled. "Evasive maneuvers, full power to engines." The human ship lurched forward, its thrusters straining to outpace the suicidal alien vessel. Alara gripped the edge of her console, her knuckles turning white as she watched the distance between the two ships rapidly diminish. "Brace for impact," she shouted, her voice barely audible over the wailing of the ship's alarms. The alien vessel slammed into the human ship with earth-shattering force, the impact sending shockwaves rippling through the void. For a moment, the human ship was engulfed in a blinding flash of light, its shields collapsing under the tremendous force of the collision. Alara felt the breath leave her lungs as the vessel shuddered and groaned, its hull buckling under the strain. She braced herself, preparing for the end, but to her astonishment, the human ship emerged from the maelstrom, its battered but still functional systems somehow keeping it afloat. As the crew gazed in stunned silence at the devastation around them, Alara knew that their lives had just taken an unexpected turn. They had stumbled into a war that was not their own, but now they were inextricably caught in its ebb and flow. The human ship had entered the fray, and the galaxy would never be the same. As the human ship emerged from the devastating collision, the crew gazed in stunned silence at the devastation that surrounded them. Alara, the seasoned captain, gripped the arms of her chair, her knuckles turning white as she surveyed the scene. The alien vessel that had attempted to ram them lay crippled, its once sleek form now a twisted, smoldering wreck. Nearby, the other alien ship they had previously damaged was slowly drifting, its engines crippled and its shields flickering. But Alara knew that their victory was a hollow one. The human ship itself had sustained heavy damage, its hull breached in multiple places, and its shield systems barely functioning. She could see the fear and uncertainty in the eyes of her crew, and she knew that they were now trapped in a war that was not their own. "Status report," she barked, her voice cutting through the tense silence. Her first officer, a young and eager lieutenant named Jackson, quickly responded. "Hull breaches on decks 3, 5, and 7, shields at 20% and falling. We've lost primary propulsion, and life support is barely holding." Alara's brow furrowed as she digested the information. Can we make repairs? Jackson hesitated, his gaze darting to the damaged systems display. It's going to be a challenge, Captain. We're running low on critical supplies, and our engineering crew is badly shaken. I'm not sure we can get the ship back to full operational status. Alara's jaw tightened, and she turned her attention to the damaged alien vessels. She knew that they were likely only the first of many they would encounter, and she needed to make a decision quickly. Helm, plot a course to the nearest habitable system, she said, her voice calm and steady. We need to find a place to make repairs and regroup. As the human ship limped away from the battlefield, Alara couldn't help but feel a sense of unease. She knew that they were now in uncharted territory, surrounded by enemies on all sides and with limited resources to draw upon. But even as the fear and uncertainty threatened to overwhelm her, Alara's resolve only grew stronger. She had sworn an oath to protect her crew and her planet, and she would do whatever it took to see them through this crisis. As the human ship navigated the treacherous void, Alara's mind raced, trying to anticipate the challenges that lay ahead. She knew that their discovery of the alien conflict had changed the course of their mission, and she couldn't help but wonder what other surprises the galaxy had in store for them. One thing was certain, though, the human ship had entered the war, and the galaxy would never be the same. Alara turned to her crew, her gaze sweeping across their faces. Listen up, everyone, she said, her voice firm and unwavering. We may have stumbled into this war, but we're not going to let it beat us. We're going to find a way to repair our ship, and then we're going to take the fight to our enemies. The crew stirred, their eyes lighting up with a renewed sense of purpose. Alara could see the determination in their faces, and she knew that they were ready to face whatever challenges lay ahead. As the human ship continued its journey, Alara steeled herself for the battles to come. She knew that the road ahead would be long and arduous, but she was confident that her crew had the strength and the courage to see it through. After all, they had already changed the course of the galaxy once. What else could the universe throw at them? The human ship limped through the vast expanse of space, its battered hull a testament to the ferocity of the battle it had endured. Captain Alara stood on the bridge, her gaze fixed on the navigation display as her crew worked tirelessly to make repairs. As the ship neared the nearest habitable system, Alara felt a growing sense of unease. She knew that they were now firmly entangled in a conflict that was not of their own making, and that the dangers that lay ahead were greater than anything they had ever faced. Captain, we're approaching the system, Jackson, her first officer, reported. Sensors are detecting several large space stations and a number of smaller orbital facilities. Alara nodded, her eyes narrowing as she studied the readouts. Any signs of activity? Jackson hesitated for a moment, his brow furrowed in concentration. There are multiple energy signatures consistent with defensive systems, but the stations appear to be mostly deserted. I'm also picking up faint distress signals from some of the smaller facilities. Alara's lips pressed into a thin line as she considered their options. On one hand, the seemingly abandoned stations could provide the resources they needed to make the necessary repairs to their ship. But on the other hand, the presence of defensive systems suggested that the system was not as deserted as it seemed. Helm, take us in slowly and keep our shields at maximum, Alara ordered, her voice calm and steady. Jackson, have the engineering team ready to begin repairs as soon as we establish a secure perimeter. As the human ship approached the outer edge of the system, Alara felt a sense of tension ripple through the bridge. The crew was on high alert, their hands hovering over their consoles as they waited for any sign of a threat. Suddenly, a series of warning lights flashed on the display, and the bridge was filled with the blaring of alarms. Captain, we've got multiple hostile contacts closing in fast, Jackson shouted, his voice tense with urgency. They're armed and maneuvering to intercept us. Alara's jaw tightened as she braced herself for the coming battle. All hands, battle stations. Arm all weapons and prepare to engage. The human ship surged forward, its powerful engines propelling it towards the incoming enemy vessels. Alara watched intently as the alien ships closed in, their gleaming hulls shimmering in the light of the nearby star. Just as the enemy ships were about to open fire, a sudden burst of static filled the bridge, and a voice crackled over the communications channel. Unidentified vessel, this is Orbital Station Gamma 12. Stand down and prepare to be boarded. We are the Galactic Security and Enforcement Agency, and you are in violation of our protocols." Alara's eyes widened in surprise, and she quickly activated the ship's communication systems. "This is Captain Alara of the human exploration vessel Artemis. We are in need of immediate assistance and repairs. We come in peace and mean no harm to your station or its personnel." There was a moment of tense silence, and then the voice on the other end responded. "Artemis, you are authorized to proceed to Docking Bay 4. Maintain your position and await further instructions." Alara let out a relieved sigh, her shoulders sagging slightly as the tension in the bridge began to dissipate. She turned to her crew, her gaze sweeping across their faces. "You heard the man, people. Let's get this ship into that docking bay and start making some repairs. We've got a war to win." As the human ship glided towards the waiting station, Alara couldn't help but feel a sense of cautious optimism. Perhaps, in this vast and unforgiving galaxy, they had finally found an ally. As the battered human ship Artemis docked with the imposing orbital station Gamma 12, Captain Alara and her crew held their breath, unsure of what to expect from their new hosts. The tension on the bridge was palpable as they waited for the station's personnel to make the first move. After what felt like an eternity, a series of airlock hatches hissed open, and a contingent of heavily armed aliens emerged, their weapons trained on the Artemis. Alara instinctively placed a hand on the holster at her side, ready to defend her crew if necessary. But to her surprise, the aliens did not open fire. Instead, they approached the Artemis with a sense of caution, their movements measured and deliberate. A tall, imposing figure in ornate armor stepped forward, his eyes narrowed as he studied the human vessel. "I am Commander Vex of the Galactic Security and Enforcement Agency," he announced, his voice carrying a deep, resonant tone. "Your vessel has entered our jurisdiction without authorization. Explain yourselves." Alara stepped forward, her posture projecting an air of calm confidence. "Commander Vex, I am Captain Alara of the human exploration vessel Artemis. We come in peace, and we mean no harm to your station or your people." Vex's gaze narrowed, and he gestured towards the Artemis's damaged hull. "Your vessel bears the scars of recent combat. That does not suggest a peaceful mission." Alara nodded, her expression serious. "We were pulled into the ongoing conflict between the warring alien factions. Our ship was damaged in the battle, and we are in need of immediate repairs and supplies." Vex considered her words for a moment, his expression unreadable. The Galactic Security and Enforcement Agency does not condone involvement in the affairs of other civilizations. However, we cannot ignore the threat that your presence may pose to our station and our people. He turned to his subordinates, issuing a series of sharp commands in a language the humans could not understand. The armed aliens split off, some returning to the airlock while others remained, their weapons trained on the Artemis. Alara felt her heart racing, her mind racing with possibilities. Were the enforcement agency going to impound their ship? Or worse, would they open fire and destroy them? Vex turned back to Alara, his expression unreadable. "Your vessel will be permitted to dock and make necessary repairs. However, you and your crew will be confined to the ship until we have determined the extent of your involvement in the ongoing conflict." Alara felt a sense of relief wash over her, but she knew that they were not out of the woods yet. "Understood, Commander. We will cooperate fully with your investigation." As the armed aliens ushered the Artemis crew back onto their ship, Alara couldn't help but feel a sense of trepidation. They had managed to find a safe harbor, but at what cost? And what would the enforcement agency do once they had completed their investigation? As the airlock hatch closed behind them, Alara turned to her crew, her expression grim. "Everyone, listen up. We're in a delicate situation here, and we need to be on our best behavior. The enforcement agency is not to be trifled with, and we can't afford to make any mistakes." The crew nodded, their faces etched with a mixture of fear and determination. Alara knew that they were all thinking the same thing, what lay in store for them in the days and weeks to come. But as she looked out the viewport at the imposing station, Alara couldn't help but feel a glimmer of hope. Perhaps, in this vast and unforgiving galaxy, they had finally found an ally who could help them navigate the treacherous waters of the ongoing conflict. Only time would tell. As the Artemis sat docked within the confines of orbital station Gamma 12, Captain Alara and her crew found themselves in a tense and uncertain limbo. Confined to their ship by the orders of the Galactic Security and Enforcement Agency, they could only watch and wait as the station's personnel conducted their investigation. Alara paced the length of the bridge, her mind racing with possibilities. What would the enforcement agency do with them? Would they be allowed to continue their journey, or would they be detained indefinitely? She knew that the fate of her crew hung in the balance, and she was determined to do whatever it took to ensure their safety. Jackson, her first officer, approached her cautiously, his expression guarded. "Captain, the station's technicians have finished their initial assessment of the Artemis. They say it will take several days to complete the necessary repairs." Alara nodded, her brow furrowed in thought. "Good. At least we'll have some time to get the ship back into fighting shape." She paused, her gaze drifting towards the viewport. "Have you heard anything from the enforcement agency about their investigation?" Jackson shook his head, his lips pressed into a thin line. "Nothing concrete yet. They've been keeping us isolated, and communication with the station has been minimal." Alara sighed, her shoulders sagging slightly. "I was afraid of that. We're in uncharted territory here, Jackson. We need to be prepared for the worst." The young officer's expression hardened, and he straightened his posture. "Whatever happens, Captain, we'll face it together. The crew is ready to do whatever it takes to get us out of this mess." Alara felt a surge of pride at his words, and she placed a reassuring hand on his shoulder. "I know, Jackson, and I'm grateful to have you all by my side." Just then, the bridge was filled with the sound of an incoming hail. Alara and Jackson exchanged a glance, both of them bracing themselves for whatever news might come. "This is Commander Vex of the Galactic Security and Enforcement Agency." A deep, resonant voice boomed through the speakers. "Captain Alara, please report to the station's command center immediately. We have completed our investigation and have a proposition for you." Alara felt a knot of tension form in the pit of her stomach, but she nodded resolutely. "Understood, Commander. I'll be there momentarily." As she made her way to the station's command center, Alara couldn't help but feel a sense of unease. What could the enforcement agency possibly want from them? And what would the consequences be if they refused? When she arrived, she found Vex waiting for her, his imposing figure standing in the center of the room. The commander's gaze was piercing, and Alara couldn't help but feel like she was being scrutinized. "Captain Alara," Vex began, his voice grave, "our investigation has revealed that your ship and its crew were not directly involved in the ongoing conflict between the warring alien factions. However, your presence in the sector has attracted their attention, and we believe that you and your crew may be in grave danger." Alara's eyes widened in surprise, and she felt a chill run down her spine. "What are you saying, Commander?" Vex's expression hardened, and he gestured towards a display on the far wall. "The alien factions have been monitoring our station and your vessel. They see you as a potential threat, and they will stop at nothing to eliminate you." Alara's heart raced, and she felt a surge of determination. "Then we need to leave this station immediately. We can't put your people at risk." But Vex raised a hand, silencing her. "That is precisely what we wish to discuss with you, Captain. We have a proposition that may benefit both of us." Alara felt a glimmer of hope, but she knew better than to let her guard down. "I'm listening." Vex's lips curled into a grim smile. "We believe that your ship and its crew may hold the key to turning the tide of the war. If you are willing to assist us, we can provide you with the resources and support you need to survive in this hostile galaxy." Alara's mind raced as she considered the implications of Vex's offer. Could this be the opportunity they had been waiting for, or was it a trap, a ploy to use them as pawns in a larger game? Either way, she knew that she had no choice but to listen. Captain Alara stood before Commander Vex in the orbital station Gamma 12's command center, her gaze unwavering as she considered the enforcement agency's proposition. The fate of her crew and the future of their mission hung in the balance, and she knew that she needed to choose her words carefully. "What exactly are you proposing, Commander?" Alara asked, her voice calm and measured. Vex's expression hardened, his eyes narrowing as he studied the human captain. "We believe that your ship and its advanced technology may hold the key to turning the tide of the war between the warring alien factions. If you and your crew are willing to assist us, we can provide you with the resources and support you need to survive and even gain the upper hand against your enemies." Alara felt a knot of tension form in the pit of her stomach. The enforcement agency's offer was tempting, but she couldn't help but wonder what the hidden costs might be, and what would we be expected to do in return. Your primary objective would be to gather intelligence on the movements and tactics of the warring factions, Vex replied. We would also require you to engage in targeted strikes and sabotage operations to disrupt their supply lines and communications. Alara's brow furrowed as she considered the implications of Vex's proposal. You're asking us to become active participants in this war. That goes against our principles as explorers and scientists. Vex's expression remained impassive. I understand your concerns, Captain, but the stakes are too high for neutrality. If the warring factions succeed in their objectives, the entire galaxy will be plunged into chaos. We cannot afford to let that happen. Alara felt a surge of frustration. And what guarantees do we have that you won't simply use us as expendable pawns in your own political games? The Enforcement Agency commander's gaze hardened. You have my word that we will provide you with the necessary support and resources to ensure your success. And should you succeed in your mission, we will grant you safe passage out of this sector, free from the threat of the warring factions. Alara felt the weight of the decision bearing down on her. She knew that her crew was counting on her to make the right choice, but the stakes were higher than she had ever imagined. Could she really justify putting their lives on the line for a cause that was not their own? As she mulled over the decision, a sudden realization struck her. If they refused the enforcement agency's offer, the warring factions would likely hunt them down and destroy them anyway. But if they accepted, they might just have a chance to survive and even make a difference in the outcome of the war. Alara straightened her posture, her expression resolute. Very well, Commander Vex. We will assist you in your efforts to disrupt the warring factions. But I want to make one thing clear. If we feel that you are not upholding your end of the bargain, we will walk away and take our chances on our own. Vex's lips curled into a satisfied smile. Excellent, Captain. I was certain that you would see the wisdom in our proposal. As Alara turned to leave the command center, she couldn't help but feel a sense of unease. She knew that she was about to embark on a dangerous and uncertain path, but the lives of her crew were at stake. She would do whatever it took to keep them safe, even if it meant becoming embroiled in a galactic war. As she rejoined her crew, Alara could see the fear and uncertainty in their eyes, but she also saw the unwavering determination that had always defined them. They were in this together, and she would make sure that they emerged victorious, no matter the cost. As the Artemis was outfitted with the latest in enforcement agency technology, Captain Alara could feel the tension on the bridge mounting. Her crew, once filled with a sense of cautious optimism, now bore the weight of the responsibility they had taken on. Alara moved through the bustling ship, her every step measured and deliberate. She knew that the decisions she made in the coming days would not only impact the fate of her crew, but potentially the entire galaxy. Captain, the upgrades are complete, Jackson, her first officer, reported as she approached the bridge. We're ready to depart on your order. Alara nodded, her gaze sweeping across the faces of her crew. Excellent work, Jackson. You've all done an exceptional job in getting the Artemis ready for this mission. A young ensign, her eyes shining with a mixture of fear and determination, spoke up. Captain, what exactly are we supposed to do out there? We're not soldiers, we're explorers and scientists. Alara felt a pang of empathy for the young woman. She knew that they were all grappling with the gravity of their situation. I understand your concerns, Ensign, but the fate of the galaxy hangs in the balance, and we're the only ones who can tip the scales. She paused, her gaze hardening. Our mission is to gather intelligence on the warring factions, identify their weaknesses, and disrupt their operations wherever we can. We'll be using our advanced technology and innovative tactics to give the enforcement agency the edge they need to turn the tide of the war. The crew stirred, a renewed sense of purpose evident in their movements. Alara knew that she had their trust, and she would do everything in her power to ensure their safety. Helm, plot a course for the nearest known staging area of the warring factions, she commanded, her voice unwavering. We've got a galaxy to save. As the Artemis surged forward, Alara couldn't help but feel a sense of trepidation. They were venturing into uncharted territory, facing foes that were far more powerful and experienced than they were. But as she watched her crew spring into action, their movements precise and efficient, she knew that they were up to the challenge. They were a team of explorers, scientists, and engineers, but they were also so much more. They were the last best hope for a galaxy on the brink of destruction. The Artemis moved swiftly through the void, its advanced engines propelling it towards its target. Alara could feel the adrenaline coursing through her veins as they approached the staging area, her heart pounding in anticipation of the battle to come. As they approached the enemy's position, the enforcement agency's intelligence reports proved accurate. The warring factions had amassed a formidable fleet, their ships bristling with weaponry and their crews battle-hardened from countless engagements. "All hands, prepare for battle," Alara barked, her voice cutting through the tense silence on the bridge. "We'll only get one shot at this, so make it count." The Artemis surged forward, its powerful weapon systems coming to life as it engaged the enemy. Alara gripped the arms of her chair, her knuckles turning white as she watched the battle unfold. The human ship danced between the enemy vessels, its advanced maneuverability and firepower giving it a decisive edge. Alara could see the confusion and panic on the faces of the alien crews as they struggled to counter the Artemis's onslaught. As the battle raged on, Alara couldn't help but feel a sense of grim satisfaction. They were making a difference, tipping the scales in favor of the enforcement agency and their allies. But deep down, she knew that this was only the beginning. The war was far from over, and the challenges they would face in the days and weeks to come would test their resolve to the very limits. The Artemis surged forward, its powerful weapon systems unleashing a devastating barrage against the enemy fleet. Captain Alara gripped the arms of her chair, her knuckles turning white as she watched the battle unfold. All around them, the warring alien factions were in disarray, their carefully orchestrated formations disintegrating under the relentless onslaught of the human ship. Alara could see the confusion and panic on the faces of the enemy crews as they struggled to comprehend the sheer power and agility of the Artemis. "Keep up the pressure," Alara shouted, her voice cutting through the chaos on the bridge. "Don't let them regroup." The crew responded with unwavering determination, their fingers flying across their consoles as they directed the ship's weaponry with precision and efficiency. Jackson, Alara's first officer, was a blur of activity, his eyes scanning the tactical displays as he issued orders to the helm and weapons teams. As the Artemis deftly maneuvered through the enemy's ranks, Alara couldn't help but feel a surge of pride. Her crew had risen to the occasion, their training and expertise shining through in the heat of battle. But even as they gained the upper hand, Alara knew that the war was far from over. The warring factions were a formidable adversary, and they would not be easily defeated. Suddenly, a proximity alert blared, and Alara's gaze snapped towards the sensor display. "New contacts, bearing 320. It's the Enforcement Agency reinforcements." A mighty fleet of Enforcement Agency ships emerged from the darkness, their powerful energy weapons adding their firepower to the Artemis's assault. Alara felt a surge of relief, knowing that their allies had arrived to turn the tide of the battle. As the two fleets engaged in a desperate struggle for supremacy, Alara could feel the tension mounting on the bridge. The stakes were higher than ever, and the fate of the galaxy hung in the balance. But just when it seemed like the Enforcement Agency and their human allies were gaining the upper hand, a new threat emerged. A massive, heavily armored alien vessel, unlike anything the Artemis's crew had ever seen, suddenly materialized on the edge of the battle. "What is that thing?" Jackson exclaimed, his eyes wide with terror. Alara's face hardened with determination. "It doesn't matter. We have to stop it, no matter the cost." The Artemis surged forward, its weapons blazing as it engaged the massive alien vessel. But the enemy's defenses were formidable, shrugging off the human ship's attacks with ease. Alara gritted her teeth, her mind racing as she searched for a weakness. And then she had an idea, a desperate gambit that could turn the tide of the battle. "Helm, plot a course to intercept that vessel," she barked. "Jackson, divert all power to the engines and weapons systems. We're going to hit it with everything we've got." The Artemis hurtled forward, its engines straining as it closed the distance to the alien behemoth. Alara could feel the ship shudder under the strain, but she refused to back down. As the Artemis drew within range, Alara unleashed a devastating barrage of missiles and energy beams, pouring everything they had into a single devastating attack. The alien vessel's shields flickered and failed, and Alara could see the crew on the bridge brace themselves for the inevitable. In a blinding flash of light, the alien vessel was consumed by a massive explosion, its hull disintegrating into a cloud of debris. Alara felt a surge of triumph, but it was short-lived as she realized the cost of their victory. The Artemis was battered and bruised, its systems barely holding together. Alara turned to her crew, her expression somber. "We did it, people. We changed the course of the war. But now, it's time to go home." As the Artemis limped away from the battlefield, Alara couldn't help but feel a sense of awe and wonder. They had entered the war as a single battered human ship, and they had emerged as the saviors of the galaxy. The universe would never be the same.